USCHO.com. This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online at USCHO.com, featuring conversations with college hockey coaches and players and journalists who cover the sport.
Welcome to USCHO Spotlight for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. I'm Ed Trefzger alongside Jim Connelly. The NCHC last weekend awarded the trophy to its regular season champion.
And joining us now on USCHO Spotlight, the head coach of the Fighting Hawks of North Dakota, and that's Brad Berry. Brad, congratulations on winning the Penrose Trophy. What a nice achievement it is in this quirky year that it's been. What's it been like, to come down the stretch, play really well, and now you're league's regular season champion?
Yeah, well, first of all, Jim and Ed, thanks for having me on. Really enjoy what you guys do and being on your program here. But yeah, no, it's been kind of an obscure year to say the least, kind of dating back to last March, and everybody's season cut short due to COVID and just trying to resurrect the next year here and having some patience. And I think that's the biggest word is patience. There wasn't a lot of certainty in the fall. We had a really strong commitment from some of our older guys, our upperclassmen that probably had chances to sign pro contracts, but wanted to come back and try to finish off what we started the year before, and that was a good thing. And then leading up into the August September time frame, there wasn't a lot of certainty within our conference or all the different leagues as far as what that looked like and when we were going to start. But I really got to hand it to Josh Fenton and the NCHC for developing a plan of trying to have everybody on an even playing field and trying to get, at least 10 games in right away in a pod in Omaha. And I thought that went really well. And our guys were very open to it. A lot of times, there could be some negativity of saying, well, we, got to be away from home for a month and different things and playing a ton of games in a short amount of time. But our guys were hungry to play. They wanted to get back playing again. That was the main thing. And then kind of finally just getting to the second half of the season here. And, we started again the first couple of weeks on the road. We had to go into Colorado College in Denver, and we really didn't play any home games until probably the end of January there. So our guys are excited about now playing at home and hosting the NCHC playoffs here in the single-elimination format that we got going, and just trying to keep our momentum going on what we have.
I was just talking to another hockey coach before we got on to record this, and they said, I kind of snuck up on me that North Dakota won the Penrose Cup. And I said, geez, the same thing happened. And I was trying to figure out the reason why. And I think it's because 2 weeks ago we were looking at the NCHC standing, seeing that it was pretty tight. But I look at what you've accomplished. Every team has had some falters, but down the stretch, you guys have won 8 out of your last 9, 14 out of your last 16, going back into kind of the second half of the pod. You guys had a couple of losses in a row in the pod. What changed? Did anything really change in terms of maybe the approach, the ability, anything on the team change? Or was it more just the pod was the pod and that was kind of a unique experience, playing a lot of games quickly? Now you feel more in a rhythm. Yeah,
well, I think first of all, Jim, is like the NCHC is it's a gauntlet of teams, like very strong teams from top to bottom. And going in the pod, it was one of those things where you had to play with some consistency. Otherwise, you'd lose a bunch of games in a row. And playing a shortened season now, you can't afford to do that. So, we lost some guys to World Junior. We had a rash of injuries that kept some guys out in the pod. And, we had that next man up mentality. And, we stumbled a little bit there for a couple of games, but we got back on the horse again. And that was a big thing. And then having some consistency from game to game. And, whenever you lose the game around here, it's never a very good feeling the next day, and everybody kind of looks in the mirror, players and staff included, on how we all have to be that better. And that's kind of the beauty of our culture here is you never want to try to lose 2 in a row there.
When I look at some of your players offensively, and you've got a lot of talent up and down your lineup, a guy that stands out to me, Shane Pinto. He's already got 15 goals in 22 games this year. He's got 28 points, which equals the production he had in his freshman season. He's done that in 11 less games. He's obviously taken a big step forward this year. What do you like about what has improved in his game?
Well, I think he's just gotten stronger and, adapted to the college game. He only played 1 year junior coming out of prep school out at Selects Academy, and that's a tough thing to do. That's when you go from prep school into the junior ranks and only playing 1 year. That said a lot about his, I guess, getting acclimated to the next level and the development at that side. And then he came into our league and then did very well as a freshman here. You mentioned about analytically how many points he scored and where he's at this year. But I think it all boils down to, you got to do it. You got to be motivated. You can coach up a kid all you want and different things, but it's got to come from him. And we call those guys everydayers, the guys that invest in themselves on a daily basis, whether that's in the weight room, whether that's in the classroom, whether that's on the ice in practice, and just doing it every day, being an everydayer. And he is. And, we go back to some of the guys that we used to have here that were high level players, Jonathan Taves, TJ Oshie, those type of players did that, and they're reaping the rewards for that at the next level. So I think it's a self-motivation that's, turned himself into a player and keeps growing exponentially day by day.
How about Jasper Weatherby? He has suddenly turned into a prolific goal scorer for your team. Where did that offense come from?
Well, I just think the self-confidence in his game, he was a high scorer in the USCHO and Wenatchee. He's a big body forward. He's a really good playmaker. And now he's developing his shot, his accuracy and velocity on his shot. But I think he's just kind of uncovering himself and just kind of just peeling the layers back of what he is as a player, a big power forward. And, I think he sees himself now as what he can be on a daily basis. And now the challenge is, he set the bar for himself here over the last month as far as, his level of play. And, our challenge to him is bring it every day now as far as that consistency in those games. And in so many words, he's kind of feeling it right now, and we want him to continue to feel it.
We're talking with North Dakota head coach Brad Berry. 4 of your 5 top scorers are seniors, and a lot of top programs have difficulty keeping players around, especially highly touted draft picks. But you've kept a pretty good group of upperclassmen. How have you kept players around, and what difference does that make to your team to have that amount of seniors and even juniors on the squad?
Well, to answer your question to start with, yeah, every program has their challenges of keeping players, especially when they flourish in their first 2 or 3 years and playing that extra year. But I think probably the biggest thing, and I mentioned it earlier in the program, was, the COVID situation. And, guys had a really good opportunity last year to try to hang another green banner, the NCAA title, the championship banner, and we didn't get to do that. And they wanted to come back and try it again here. And, I think it says a lot about the individual as far as being team first and, putting their pro aspirations aside for a few months just to try to do that. And, I do feel that, I think whether it's our program or any other college program around the country, everybody develops their culture and their experience at the collegiate level. And, we have a lot of guys, in the NHL, the Drake Kajulas, the Brock Bessers, the Nick Schmaltzes of the world that call in, and they won a championship here together on the CBS line. And we stay in touch with them, both staff and players. And, they go, hey, this is great. The highest level in hockey is the NHL, but hey, don't rush out of North Dakota. I mean, that's a special place. You'll never, ever get it back again. So I think it's just having former players just say, hey, you're in a good place here. It'll always be here. Stay as long as you can, kind of thing.
You mentioned about it being a gauntlet in the NCHC. You've had to play Denver 6 times. You've got 2 more coming up with Omaha. That'll make 6 games. Seems like playing all these games against opponents in the league, especially 6 times, is getting some tempers and emotions up, especially like last Saturday night. Has the rivalry feeling within the league kind of amped up a bit this year?
Yeah, you know what? I think, our league I think it's in its 8th year of its existence right now. And I think, if you would pinpoint it to say it's us and Duluth or us and Denver as rivals, I would agree with you. But I think it's developing into more than that. I think in a respectful way, you're playing against 7 other very, very good teams. And it's a situation where, winning and losing is a fine line. And I just see that with Omaha. Like, they're a team that's a very good team. They built their program over the last few years, starting with Dean Blaze. He did an outstanding job of getting that program on the map and building it. And now Mike Gavinet's taken over there, and they've done a good job of building their program. So you're seeing a lot of good programs in the NCHC. And I think when you look at it, when it comes to postseason, it makes you battle tested and hopefully ready for the NCAA tournament, knowing that you did go through that gauntlet of teams the whole year.
Talking about playoffs, you're going to have a special format for the Frozen Faceoff this year. everything happening at Ralph Engelstad Arena, and getting into a single elimination situation. What kind of additional challenges do you have with one and done as opposed to maybe a 2 out of 3 series?
Well, that's a great question. You got to bring your best, and you got to make sure that you don't have any passengers. And when you lose games, sometimes you reflect back as a coach and you go, okay, like how many guys brought their A game tonight? And if you probably go through it, when you lose games, you probably don't have your full team playing their best. That we call it having some passengers some night, and you can't have any passengers in the single elimination format. You can't. Everybody's got to try to bring their best or bring close to their best that night. And in a game when you play against such good teams, and I think the one thing it does, this NCHC format, especially the quarterfinals, in normal years you have the best of 3, and then you go on to the Frozen Faceoff in St. Paul for that single elimination. Right now, it kind of focuses you and dials you in the national tournament, meaning that's the way it's going to be in the national tournament. You got to bring your best, and the best keep moving on, and the ones that lose are done for the year. So I think it really snaps you into what you have to do for the national tournament side of it.
More with North Dakota's Brad Berry in a moment.
This is the USCHO Spotlight, a weekly podcast from U.S. College Hockey Online.
Continuing now with North Dakota head coach Brad Berry. You got to have some fans back in the Ralph. I'll argue with anybody that you have the best fan base in college hockey. What was it like to get even a few people back in the building?
Oh, it was outstanding. Obviously going through the pod, and they did a great job in the pod, in a controlled environment with minimizing the risk with not having a lot of people other than the staff and the teams come in there. But, it depended on state to state and county to county on what you can have in your building. And I think we're at probably about 25% capacity of having around 3,000 fans in our building. But those 3,000 fans act like they're 12,000 as far as, being raucous and vocal and supportive. So, we're very fortunate and blessed to have those people. I know there's a ton of people that would love to get in the Ralph, but hopefully we can do that in a few months from now. But, when you talk about the best fans in college hockey, I probably agree with you because it's not only at home, they travel everywhere. I remember we went to a game out in New York City playing against Boston College a few years ago, and we had 8,000 fans in the Madison Square Garden, and it was green, white, and black as far as jerseys there, and they travel everywhere, and that tells us that we have something very special.
We're talking with Brad Berry, head coach at North Dakota. And Brad, you've clinched your regular season title now. You still have 2 weekends with single games, a road game this week, and then a home game against Omaha. 2 more, this is 6 times you're playing them in your last 8 games. Do you change any approach to this weekend? Do you maybe try to find ways to rest guys? If guys were kind of playing at 80%, can you give guys rest because you have that luxury of having things clinched at this point? Or do you just feel like you have to keep the train rolling?
That's another great question you gave me there, and I think it's something you go through the week here, and the biggest thing as a coach and as a team is you really want to keep momentum. You want to keep you want to keep your foot on the gas, and you want to keep playing with momentum because we just talked about the single elimination and not letting up in that regard, but also being smart about at this time of year when you do have some nicks and bumps and bruises of maybe trying to rest 1 or 2 guys. We really haven't got there yet, as far as a team, as far as making a decision on that side of it. I know if you'd ask our players, they'd want to go 100 miles an hour and all play the games just like the coaches would here. But I think what we'll do is we'll go through the week here and see what makes sense, and then try to keep our foot on the gas with whoever's in the lineup.
Well, it's been a great season to date and an interesting one for your team, Brad. Brad Berry, head coach in North Dakota, congratulations on your regular season title. I know there's a lot more accomplishments you'd like along the way, so best of luck with those.
Yeah, thanks, Jim and Ed. You guys do an outstanding job, and thanks for all you do for college hockey. Thanks for letting me be on your program today.
That's North Dakota head coach Brad Berry. Jim, I always enjoy talking to Brad, and one of the things I think about with him is not to say that other coaches aren't, but when you talk about a coach that is a player's coach, I think about Brad Berry because we didn't touch on it as much in this one, but you can tell when you talk to him and other times when we've interviewed him, how much he really cares about the well-being of his players. And that may play into part of why he's been successful in keeping seniors around too.
Yeah, I think there's a certain bunch of coaches out there, and they might all come from an older generation who kind of give you that more players coach feel. I think of Scott Sandlin at Minnesota Duluth the same way, Jeff Jackson, even to some extent Jerry York at Boston College, and maybe Jerry loses some more players, but I think that they also take certain different types of players as well, and recruit differently. But I think that it's a big advantage when you can have that personality that meshes with your players in the locker room, where you can get pure respect, pure buy-in, and you see it with these North Dakota teams that come out of there, how hard they work every night. He kind of talked about just going 100 miles an hour, and everybody wants to do it. You have to do it with a little bit of caution, and you have to have some awareness, but you still know that you have to have that level of intensity every night. And that's what makes North Dakota year in, year out, night in, night out, very tough to play against.
It's going to be quite the atmosphere for the Frozen Faceoff. Single elimination, which in itself is very exciting. A hot goalie, a major penalty, some freaky puck luck early in the game, all can swing things the other way for a huge underdog. And add to that, getting fans in the building, 6,000 people at Ralph Engelstad, or 3,000 people, or whatever they're going to allow. That is going to be quite the playoff atmosphere. One and done, crowds, rivalries. It's going to be fantastic.
I agree with you. I think that what they're doing and putting it in a building that they knew they could have fans is somewhat sizable, the biggest building in the league in terms of an on-campus site. It was smart, I don't know what they're going to end up with. If it's 25% fans, it'll be what they've had the last few weekends, which I think is just over 2,500 fans. I think that, you will get more atmosphere there than anywhere, and maybe other leagues, we don't know what's going to happen in terms of where the championship game might be played. But this is a tournament all in one place with fans. I think that's really advantageous. And I look forward to it. One and done it's not typical in hockey. You usually get that series somewhere along the way, whether, it's usually the quarterfinals. Some leagues were doing it in the semifinals of late as well. But the ability to have that you kind of mentioned it, it's almost like, this isn't basketball where, if you're supposed to win a game, especially if you're a heavy favorite, you're probably going to win 85, 90% of the time. Hockey, the favorite probably only wins in college hockey probably 60 to 65% of the time, which that puts in a lot of room for error. And you make a couple of mistakes, you go down early, you start chasing the game, you start gripping your stick a little bit differently. You never know what happens in a one and done format.
And coming up, 2 single games with Omaha, one at Baxter Arena coming up on Friday. That's in Omaha, and then back home to end the season the Friday after. It's going to be interesting to see how North Dakota keeps its foot on the gas, as Brad Berry put it, because the games mean less to North Dakota than they mean to Omaha. And what I mean by that, Omaha right now pretty well has 4th place in the conference locked up. But a few wins, just 1 point behind Minnesota Duluth, they could climb potentially as high as 2nd place. And that means the difference between playing, say, Denver or playing Colorado College in that single elimination first round. Those are huge games. Add to that all the intensity and emotion left over from last weekend. These are going to be a couple of huge games for the Mavericks and tough ones to fight back against for the Fighting Hawks.
Certainly. You kind of nailed it there, is that Omaha has a lot to play for. And we didn't even mention the fact that they're not really locked into the NCAA tournament yet. They've got to probably do some winning down the stretch here. I would hate to see them, basically lose 2 more here and then maybe get knocked out in that first game of the NCHC tournament, end their season with 5 straight losses. That wouldn't look good if you're the committee and you're trying to figure out who maybe that lost bubble team. It wouldn't help their comparisons against other teams. So I think that Omaha has a ton on the line here. I do hope that the emotion stays a little bit more in check. You don't need 104 minutes and penalty minutes. You don't need line brawls. You don't need referees in there trying to figure out who's punching who and how many minutes everybody needs to get. So hopefully cooler tempers prevail, but it should be good hockey for these last 2 weekends.
And I didn't get to ask Brad the question that has been bugging me. Are the quarter zip pullovers here to stay for coaches?
I think they are. I see so many of them. Out in Hockey East here, I think at least 9 and maybe 10 of the coaches right now are wearing them. I think Jim Madigan has been the outlier that I've seen so far. He's been in the suit, I think, every night with his staff. But for the most part, these coaches like the comfort look. And, it also comes down to a design element. They're designing different quarter zips. And, Jerry York wears a puffy one, and, other coaches wear thinner ones. And some look really dressy, some look more casual. I think it's great. It's a different look. And it's definitely more relatable to the average fan.
I've seen the gamut too in games, everything from GQ to watching NFL on the couch. So I think there's quite a range there. We'll have to see where that goes. Well, let's wrap it there. For Jim Connelly, I'm Ed Trefzger, and we'll catch you next time.
This has been the USCHO Spotlight, a production of U.S. College Hockey Online. Visit USCHO.com/podcasts to listen or subscribe.